Love is a wonderful thing, but it is not always simple. There are moments when you feel like you understand everything, but then there are times when you feel confused and lost. So how to overcome the challenges in love? Not all heartbreaks come with slammed doors or shouted words. Sometimes, love fades quietly, through silence instead of arguments, distance instead of absence. You find yourself lying next to someone who feels miles away, wondering when things began to change. His words grow shorter, his warmth disappears, and you begin to feel more alone than ever before. If you're questioning whether the man you love is still truly with you, not just in body, but in heart, these signs might be exactly what you need to understand what your soul has already begun to whisper. Welcome to the channel, Sophia's Knowledge, and my name is Sophia. This is where we will explore, learn, and share valuable lessons about love. In today's video, Sophia will reveal to you 6 clear signs your man has stopped loving you. Let's explore with Sophia the secrets to building a strong and meaningful love. Before we begin, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax. Let all your worries go away, and let the messages in this video help you calm down and feel the most complete. Are you ready? Let's start now. Sign number 1. He no longer cares about your feelings. One of the most painful signs that love is slipping away is subtle, yet unmistakable. He no longer cares about your feelings. It doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in quietly, almost invisibly, until one day you find yourself sitting next to someone who once held your heart with such tenderness, and now barely notices when it's breaking. When a man is in love, he instinctively becomes attuned to your emotional world. He doesn't just hear your words, he listens between the lines. He notices the shift in your tone, the flicker in your eyes, the silence that lingers just a second too long. Your sadness unsettles him, your happiness lifts him, and your pain becomes something he wants to soothe. That's what love looks like: empathy, concern, emotional presence. But when that love begins to fade, so does his emotional responsiveness. You begin to notice that your tears no longer prompt concern. You tell him about a bad day, and he nods, distracted, scrolling through his phone. You open up about your fears, your insecurities, your dreams, and he offers empty platitudes, or worse, changes the subject. The conversations that once ran deep now barely scratch the surface. There's a chill where warmth used to be. It's not just about words. It's about presence. When he no longer cares about your feelings, there's a distinct emotional absence. You might be physically together, sharing space, meals, or even a bed, but it feels like your worlds apart. You speak, but you're not heard. You cry, but you're not comforted. You ache, but your pain echoes back at you, unanswered. There's a loneliness that begins to grow, not from being alone, but from being unseen. At first, you might second-guess yourself. Maybe he's stressed, maybe he's tired, maybe it's just a phase. You try harder. You soften your voice, you give more space, you become more understanding. You try to earn his attention, not realizing that attention that must be earned isn't love, it's control, or worse, indifference disguised as distance. And here's the truth: when someone loves you, they care about how you feel even when they're busy, even when they're tired, even when life is hard. Because love doesn't clock out when it's inconvenient. Love shows up. It listens. It leans in. When a man stops caring about your emotions, it's not just about a lack of empathy, it's about emotional withdrawal. It's often the first sign of detachment. He may still be physically present, going through the motions, doing the boyfriend or husband things. But he's no longer with you. He's checked out emotionally, and no matter how hard you try to bridge that gap, he's already standing on the other side. And perhaps the hardest part is what this does to you. You begin to question your worth. You start wondering if you're being too sensitive, too emotional, too needy. You shrink yourself to fit into the narrowing space he's giving you. You start to silence your feelings to avoid being a burden. But love was never meant to make you feel like a burden. Love was meant to give you a place to be soft, to be safe, to be seen. If you find yourself in this space, where your feelings are no longer held, acknowledged, or cared for, then you owe it to yourself to pause. To ask the hard questions. To look at your reflection and remember that you deserve a love that listens. A love that doesn't turn away from your tears, but reaches out. A love that sees your emotional world not as an inconvenience, but as an invitation to connect more deeply. Relationships evolve. People grow. Love changes. But when someone stops caring about how you feel, that's not growth, it's disconnection. You deserve someone who asks how your heart is doing. Someone who notices the tremble in your voice and asks why. Someone who doesn't just hear that you're hurting, but actually cares that you are, and wants to help ease it. Someone who values your emotions as much as they value their own. It may be difficult to accept, but recognizing this sign is an act of self-respect. It's not about blaming him or even fixing him. It's about facing the reality of the emotional landscape you're standing in. And choosing not to stay in a place where your feelings are invisible. Because in the end, the absence of care is not just a sign that love has faded. It's a sign that your heart is no longer being held the way it deserves to be. And sometimes, the bravest, most loving thing you can do, for yourself, is to walk away from that absence and toward a space where your emotions are truly valued. If you found this video helpful, please share it with your friends or family to spread the value. And if you have any questions or ideas, leave them in the comments. I'm always listening and ready to answer. Let's continue together. Sign number 2. Communication becomes cold and brief. Love thrives on connection, and connection is built through communication. In the early stages of a relationship, conversations feel effortless. There's excitement in every exchange, curiosity in every question, and warmth in every word. You talk for hours without even realizing it. You share your dreams, your fears, the mundane and the meaningful. It's not just about talking, it's about wanting to talk. It's about genuinely desiring to know and be known. But when a man begins to fall out of love, one of the first places it shows is in his communication. At first, the change might be subtle. He replies a little later than usual. His texts become shorter, just one-word answers where there used to be paragraphs. Conversations that once flowed naturally now feel forced. You bring something up, and he gives a vague nod or a distracted "hmm." The warmth in his voice is gone. The spark that once lit up his eyes when he spoke to you has faded into indifference. It's not just that the conversations are shorter, it's the energy behind them that has changed. When someone is still emotionally invested, even the most mundane topics feel alive. They ask follow-up questions, they remember details, they circle back days later just to check in. But when communication becomes cold, it feels transactional. It's no longer about connection, it's about getting through the moment. You ask how his day was, and he says, "Fine." You tell him you miss him, and he responds with a delayed, "Yeah, me too." He's present, but not really there. His words are empty, stripped of emotion, devoid of intimacy. And this shift, this growing silence between two people, isn't just frustrating. It's heartbreaking. Because when the one you love stops communicating with you, it feels like being locked out of a home you once lived in. You used to know your way around his thoughts, his expressions, the rhythms of his speech. Now, it's as if you're standing at the door, knocking, and no one is answering. You start to wonder what changed. Did you do something wrong? Is he stressed? Is it just a phase? You make excuses, try harder, initiate more conversations. You ask him how he's feeling. You try to bring up shared memories, inside jokes, anything that might pull him back into the space you once shared. But instead of drawing closer, he pulls further away. It's in the way he stops telling you about his day. It's in how he no longer asks about yours. It's in the conversations that used to start with "I was just thinking about you" and now feel more like updates from a distant acquaintance. He's no longer sharing his world with you. He's no longer letting you in. And this is where it becomes deeply painful. When communication fades, so does emotional safety. You no longer feel like his confidant, his best friend, his partner. You feel like a ghost of what once was, lingering in a space that used to be filled with warmth and words. You miss the way he used to look at you when you spoke. You miss the sound of his laughter when you made a silly joke. You miss the version of him who couldn't go a day without hearing your voice. Now, silence fills the space where love used to live. Cold and brief communication is more than a change in habit. It's a reflection of a shift in emotional investment. When a man stops communicating openly, affectionately, and consistently, it often signals that his heart is no longer fully in the relationship. And no matter how much effort you put in to revive the dialogue, if he no longer wants to talk, not just to you, but with you, that's a powerful sign. But here's what you must remember: communication is not a one-sided effort. Love requires two people willing to meet in the middle, to show up with honesty, vulnerability, and care. If you're the only one reaching out, trying to connect, trying to save conversations that feel like they're slipping through your fingers, then you're fighting for something he's no longer fighting for. And that's not your fault. You are not too much for wanting connection. You are not clingy for craving meaningful conversation. You are not wrong for noticing the coldness in his tone and feeling it like a wound. Your need to communicate is not the problem. The lack of response is. If you're in a place where communication has become cold and brief, don't ignore it. It may not mean the relationship is over, but it does mean something is off. And love, real love, doesn't thrive in silence. It needs words. It needs attention. It needs effort. You deserve someone who wants to talk to you. Someone who lights up when they hear your voice. Someone who leans into the conversation instead of away from it. Someone who makes you feel heard, not just with words, but with presence, with energy, with love. And if you're no longer getting that from him, it's not your job to beg for it. Your voice matters. Your feelings matter. Your presence matters. And communication, true, open, loving communication, should be the bridge that connects two hearts, not the wall that separates them. If you are still watching the video, do not hesitate to comment continue. Leave your thoughts and questions below in the comment section. I look forward to hearing your opinions, and do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel so that Sophia has more motivation to create more good and meaningful videos. Let's continue together. Sign number 3. He avoids or makes excuses to not be close to you. There was a time when closeness came naturally. A soft touch on your arm, a kiss on your forehead, a warm embrace that said, "I'm here, and I want to be near you." That kind of intimacy doesn't always need words, it's felt. It lives in the spaces between your hands when you reach for each other, in the long hugs after a hard day, in the gentle gestures that whisper, "You matter to me." But when a man begins to fall out of love, one of the clearest signs is this: he no longer wants to be close. And instead of expressing that openly, he starts to avoid you, or worse, makes excuses to stay away. It starts small. He used to greet you with a hug. Now, he walks past you without a glance. He used to cuddle up on the couch during movies. Now, he sits on the other side, arms crossed, eyes glued to his phone. You reach for his hand, but he pulls away under the pretense of being distracted, tired, or needing space. When you try to initiate affection, he stiffens or dodges it altogether. The physical and emotional gap grows wider by the day. What makes this shift especially painful is how invisible it can feel. He's not saying anything cruel. He may still be around. But presence means nothing without connection. And slowly, the space where closeness used to live becomes colder. You feel like you're chasing someone who used to run toward you. You start to feel like a stranger in a relationship that once felt like home. He might say he's just tired, stressed, overwhelmed. And maybe, for a time, that's true. Life gets heavy. But when the pattern continues, when closeness is no longer a natural part of your bond, it becomes something more than stress. It becomes a signal. Intimacy, both physical and emotional, is an essential part of a loving relationship. It's where we feel seen, safe, and cherished. When someone avoids that kind of closeness, it's not just a behavioral change. It's a shift in the emotional landscape of the relationship. The avoidance says, "I don't feel connected to you anymore," or "I'm pulling away because I no longer want what we once shared." You begin to notice the distance everywhere. In the way he hesitates before making plans with you. In how he chooses to spend time with others or bury himself in work rather than being with you. In how he creates subtle barriers, locking himself behind routines, screens, or silence. And when you ask him about it, the answers feel rehearsed, defensive, or dismissive. You're overthinking. "I'm just tired. I need some space." The words might sound harmless, but the feeling they leave behind is hollow. It's not just physical closeness that disappears. It's emotional intimacy too. The man who once shared his thoughts, his worries, his heart, now seems guarded, withdrawn, unreachable. You ask him what's wrong, and he shrugs. You ask him how he's feeling, and he gives you surface-level answers. You try to be close, but it feels like he's putting up walls faster than you can knock them down. And then comes the loneliness. Not the kind you feel when you're alone, but the kind you feel in someone's presence. The kind that whispers, "He's here, but he's not really with me." You begin to question yourself. You wonder what you did wrong. You analyze every moment, every word, searching for the trigger. But love doesn't fade because of a single misstep. It fades when one person starts choosing distance over connection, again and again. You might try harder. You might become more affectionate, more understanding, more available. But love is not meant to be chased. When it's real, it meets you halfway. It shows up even when it's tired. It chooses closeness not just when it's convenient, but because connection matters more than comfort. The truth is, when a man avoids intimacy, when he makes excuses to not be close, it often means something has shifted inside him. His heart is no longer where it used to be. And no matter how much you try to pull him back, closeness cannot exist without mutual desire. It cannot survive in a space where only one person is reaching, while the other is retreating. So what do you do when the person you love no longer wants to be close? You begin by remembering what you deserve. You deserve a love that leans in, not one that pulls away. You deserve someone who finds comfort in your arms, not someone who flinches at your touch. You deserve someone who chooses you, not just in words, but in presence, in affection, in effort. You cannot force closeness. You cannot convince someone to want to be near you. But you can choose to stop shrinking yourself in hopes of earning love. You can choose to stop waiting for scraps of affection from someone who used to give it freely. You can choose to protect your heart instead of handing it over to someone who no longer holds it with care. In every relationship, there will be seasons. Busy days, difficult times, brief moments of distance. But when avoidance becomes the norm, when excuses replace effort, when closeness is replaced by coldness, that's when you must look honestly at what the relationship has become. Because love doesn't hide. Love doesn't avoid. Love doesn't make excuses to stay away. Love shows up. And you deserve nothing less. Sign number 4. He is no longer proactive in the relationship. Love is not just a feeling, it is an action, a choice made day after day. It shows up in the little things, a text that says, "Thinking of you," an unexpected coffee brought to your door, a question asked just to understand you better. In a healthy relationship, both people show initiative. They make plans, express affection, and invest energy, not out of obligation, but from a genuine desire to nurture the bond. But when a man is falling out of love, one of the clearest signs is that he stops being proactive. He no longer takes the lead, no longer puts in the effort, no longer moves toward the relationship with intention. Instead, he becomes passive, indifferent, emotionally absent, and slowly, you begin to feel like you're the only one trying. At first, the shift may be subtle. Maybe he used to plan dates, check in throughout the day, or surprise you with small acts of thoughtfulness. Now, he rarely initiates anything. You're the one always reaching out first. You're the one suggesting plans, starting conversations, holding the weight of the relationship on your shoulders while he just coasts. It feels like he's stopped showing up. He stops asking questions about your day. He doesn't remember important dates or notice the little things that matter to you. When you express a need or a concern, he nods, but you rarely see any change. The follow-through disappears. The effort fades. You find yourself stuck in a pattern of overfunctioning, doing the work of two people while he stands by, distant and detached. This lack of initiative isn't about being lazy or forgetful, it's about emotional disengagement. When a man is no longer proactive, it often means his heart isn't invested the way it used to be. He's no longer excited about growing the relationship. He's no longer thinking ahead or imagining a future with you. Instead, he's doing the bare minimum, holding on in appearance but not in spirit. And you feel it. You feel it in the empty spaces where effort used to live. In the silence that follows your messages. In the way plans are always made by you, and cancelled by him. You feel it when you stop hearing "I miss you," or "let's do something together." You feel it when your shared life starts to look more like a routine than a relationship. Over time, this imbalance becomes exhausting. You start questioning your worth. You wonder if you're asking for too much. You shrink yourself, stop bringing things up, stop hoping. You convince yourself that maybe this is just what relationships look like after a while. But deep down, you know it's not about time, it's about effort. And effort doesn't fade when love is real. It only grows. A proactive partner doesn't need to be perfect. He doesn't need grand gestures or constant attention. What matters is consistency, presence, willingness. A man who loves you doesn't leave you wondering where you stand. He doesn't make you chase closeness or beg for attention. He meets you halfway, because he wants to. When he stops being proactive, it's not just about what he's no longer doing. It's about what you've lost: partnership, connection, teamwork. Relationships are meant to be shared spaces, not one-sided performances. When you're the only one putting in the work, the emotional toll is heavy. You begin to feel more like a caretaker than a partner. More like someone managing a project than someone building a life with someone else. And what's hardest is how this passivity erodes your hope. Because when someone stops trying, it sends a message louder than words: you're not worth the effort anymore. That message might not be spoken aloud, but it's felt, in the lack of planning, the empty gestures, the slow but steady disappearance of the man who once pursued you with energy and intention. If you're in this place now, here's what you need to know: you're not imagining things. You're not overreacting. Your need for effort, for shared responsibility, for presence is not too much. It is the bare minimum in a loving, healthy relationship. And while every relationship has its quiet seasons, moments when one partner needs a little more support than the other, this shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be your new reality. If his lack of initiative has become constant, if you're carrying the emotional load alone, then it's time to ask the hard question: is he still in this with me? Because love doesn't just speak, it acts. A man in love wants to show up. He doesn't need reminders. He doesn't wait for you to tell him what to do. He looks for ways to support you, connect with you, grow with you. His effort may be imperfect, but it's there, and it's genuine. When that disappears, you are left with a relationship that looks whole from the outside but is hollow within. And no matter how strong, patient, or loving you are, you cannot carry the weight of two people forever. So if he is no longer proactive, don't just wait and hope. Don't keep overextending yourself in the name of love. Look at what is real. Listen to what is missing. And remind yourself of this simple truth: you deserve a partner, not a placeholder. Someone who chooses you. Again and again. Not because he has to, but because he still wants to. Sign number 5. He is constantly irritable and critical toward you. One of the most painful signs that a man is falling out of love is when the kindness fades and is replaced by criticism, irritation, and blame. You begin to feel like no matter what you do, it's never enough. The tone of his voice changes. The words he once used to build you up now seem to tear you down. And the man who once made you feel safe and adored slowly becomes someone who makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells. It doesn't happen all at once. At first, it might be the little things. He sighs when you ask a question. He rolls his eyes when you express an opinion. He snaps over things that used to make him laugh. The warmth in his responses is gone, replaced by coldness or frustration. And suddenly, the person who used to cherish your presence now seems annoyed by it. When someone falls out of love, their patience tends to disappear with their affection. What used to be quirks are now flaws. What used to be forgivable is now unbearable. You find yourself criticized for how you talk, how you dress, how you think. He starts to comment on the way you clean the house, how you speak to others, how you spend your time. Nothing you do seems to be the right way anymore. And the worst part? You start blaming yourself. You begin to wonder what's wrong with you. You try harder to be pleasing, to be perfect, to avoid setting him off. You silence your needs and shrink your voice. You become hyper-aware of your every move, hoping to avoid the next outburst. But no matter how careful you are, he always seems to find something wrong. The goalposts keep shifting, and you're left exhausted from trying to measure up. This constant irritability and criticism is not just about his mood, it's a reflection of where his heart is. When someone no longer loves you deeply, they stop seeing you through a lens of compassion. The empathy fades. The effort to understand you vanishes. Instead of approaching you with grace, they approach you with judgment. Instead of being your partner, they become your critic. And it chips away at you. Slowly, this dynamic begins to change how you see yourself. The woman who once felt confident, loved, and secure begins to feel small, confused, and anxious. You start doubting your worth. You wonder why you're not enough. And in trying to protect the relationship, you end up losing pieces of yourself. What makes this especially heartbreaking is the memory of how things used to be. You remember the version of him who used to praise you, support you, admire you. The one who listened with care and looked at you like you were the best part of his world. And now, that same person barely looks up when you walk in the room, except to find something to criticize. This shift from connection to criticism doesn't just hurt, it isolates. It creates an emotional distance that is hard to name, but impossible to ignore. You may still live under the same roof. You may still share meals, responsibilities, routines. But when someone sees you as a problem instead of a partner, the emotional bond begins to break. And here's the truth: love does not thrive in criticism. It does not grow in fear. A healthy relationship is built on respect, not resentment. It is not perfect, but it is kind. There is room for mistakes, for growth, for being human. When every flaw is magnified and every word becomes a trigger, what's left is not love, it's control, frustration, and emotional neglect. Sometimes, a man who constantly criticizes you is projecting his own dissatisfaction, either with the relationship or with himself. Rather than take responsibility for his feelings or express them in a mature, open way, he deflects them onto you. You become the outlet for his discontent. And the more he pushes the blame onto you, the more he avoids confronting the truth, that he may no longer want to be there. It's not your job to absorb someone else's emotional chaos. It's not your responsibility to fix a man who has stopped choosing you with love and respect. And it's never okay to live in a space where you are consistently made to feel small, inadequate, or not good enough. If you find yourself in a relationship where criticism and irritation have become the norm, take a step back and ask yourself, when was the last time I felt loved? Truly, deeply loved? Not tolerated. Not managed. Not judged. But loved, for who you are, not who you're trying to become to please someone else. You deserve peace. You deserve kindness. You deserve a partner who speaks to you with care, even in hard moments. You deserve someone who still sees the beauty in you, even when life is messy. A man who is in love builds with you, not against you. He holds space for your flaws. He doesn't weaponize them. Love doesn't look like constant criticism. Love looks like patience. It looks like effort. It looks like someone choosing to understand rather than accuse. Someone choosing to uplift rather than undermine. So if the man beside you has turned his words into weapons, if his tone cuts deeper than silence, if his gaze now sees you as a burden instead of a blessing, it may be time to recognize the truth. He may still be in your life, but he is no longer in your love. And you are allowed to want more. To need more. To leave in order to protect the most sacred relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. Sign number 6. You feel lonely even though you're still in a relationship. There's a certain kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from being with someone who is supposed to be your closest companion, but somehow feels like a stranger. It's waking up next to someone every morning, sharing meals, space, and routines, yet feeling emotionally abandoned. It's one of the clearest, most heartbreaking signs that something in the relationship has gone quiet. You feel alone, even though you're still together. This loneliness isn't loud. It doesn't always come with fights or obvious betrayals. Often, it arrives silently, settling in between conversations that no longer go deep, touches that no longer linger, and eyes that no longer meet with warmth. It creeps into the spaces where intimacy used to live, where connection used to thrive. And over time, it makes you question not only your relationship, but yourself. You may go through the motions. Dinners, weekend errands, shared responsibilities. But underneath it all, there's a hollow ache. A sense that the emotional presence, the partnership, the love that once defined your bond is fading. You talk, but the conversations feel transactional. You sit in the same room, but your souls feel miles apart. You laugh less. You touch less. You feel less, and that absence is deafening. One of the hardest parts of this kind of loneliness is how invisible it can be. From the outside, everything might look fine. You're still in the relationship. There's no dramatic breakup. No storm of arguments. Just silence. Distance. Disconnection. And because it's so quiet, you begin to doubt your own feelings. Maybe it's just a phase. Maybe I'm being too emotional. Maybe this is just how relationships evolve over time. But deep down, you know. You know that what you're feeling isn't just about routine or comfort. It's about the absence of something vital, emotional intimacy. That feeling of truly being seen, heard, and valued. When that disappears, it doesn't matter how often you see each other or how long you've been together, loneliness can still bloom in the heart of a relationship. You start to miss things that were once effortless. The long conversations that stretched into the night. The way he used to look at you like you were the most important thing in the room. The small gestures, a hand on your back, a kiss on the forehead, a random message just to say I miss you. You miss feeling chosen, cherished, wanted. And now, you spend your days wondering if the connection you once had is truly gone, or just buried somewhere too deep to reach. This emotional loneliness isn't about needing constant attention or unrealistic romance. It's about needing to feel emotionally safe and bonded. It's about being able to turn to your partner and know that they're really there, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's about knowing that you're not carrying the weight of the relationship alone. But when you express this loneliness, you might be met with confusion, or even dismissal. He might say, I'm right here, aren't I? Or you're overthinking again. He might think that showing up physically is enough. But presence without connection is just proximity. You can share a bed and still feel like you're oceans apart. You can sit at the same dinner table and still feel like you're dining with a ghost of what used to be. And the more this feeling lingers, the more it begins to wear you down. You start to silence your needs because they feel like a burden. You stop initiating deep conversations because you're tired of being met with apathy. You stop reaching out emotionally because you're afraid of being met with silence. And in doing so, you slowly disappear inside the relationship, still present, still functioning, but emotionally numb. This kind of loneliness is dangerous because it's quiet. There are no obvious alarms. Just a slow erosion of connection that eventually leaves you feeling emotionally starved in a place that was once your home. But here's the truth, love should not feel like this. Love isn't just shared space, it's shared presence. It's the feeling that your heart is safe with another person. That you're not just seen, but felt. That you're not navigating life alone while someone else watches from the sidelines. A man who still loves you deeply shows up. Not just physically, but emotionally. He leans into the relationship, even when it's hard. He listens, even when it's uncomfortable. He notices your loneliness before you even have to name it, and when you do, he cares. He doesn't brush it off. He doesn't tell you you're too sensitive. He listens. He responds. He reaches back. If you're feeling deeply lonely in your relationship, it's not because you're broken or needy. It's because your emotional needs, your human needs, are not being met. And that matters. You don't have to settle for emotional starvation just because someone hasn't left you physically. You don't have to accept a relationship that leaves your soul feeling forgotten. Love is not just about staying. It's about showing up. Fully. Repeatedly. Genuinely. So if your heart is aching in silence, if you're lying beside someone but feel like you're drifting away alone, listen to that feeling. It's not weakness. It's not oversensitivity. It's truth. And the truth is, you deserve a love that meets you, not just in presence, but in connection. Not just in habit, but in devotion. Not just in proximity, but in partnership. Because there is nothing lonelier than being in a relationship where love no longer lives. Conclusion. Love doesn't always end with a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes, it slips away quietly, through silence, distance, neglect, and the absence of effort. The 6 signs we've explored are not meant to create fear or doubt, but to help you see clearly what your heart may have already sensed. A man who no longer listens, no longer communicates, no longer reaches for you, not physically, emotionally, or mentally, may no longer be holding space for love in the way he once did. You might still share a home, a routine, a name on paper. But when his words feel sharp, his gaze turns cold, and you feel lonelier with him than you ever did alone, these are not just hard seasons. They are signs. Signs that you are growing apart. That you may be loving harder than you're being loved in return. And the truth is, you deserve more. You deserve someone who chooses you, not out of habit, but from the heart. Someone who listens without judgment, communicates with care, and holds you not just in their arms, but in their priorities. If you recognize these signs in your relationship, don't silence your intuition. Don't minimize your needs. Love should never leave you feeling unloved. Because when love is real, it doesn't leave you guessing. It shows up. It speaks gently. And most of all, it stays. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. Hopefully the sharing about love and lessons from this video will help you have new thoughts and find empathy. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and share it with those around you. Each of us has our own stories about love, and I'm happy to explore them with you. See you in the next videos. Wish you a wonderful and loving day.